Hey friends, okay, so today's video is all about C-sections. I have had 4 C-sections and my 4th one was a year and a half ago, and so I get a ton of questions about this on my videos, and this is one of my highest viewed videos is about my 4th C-section. And so I wanted just to come on here a year later and answer a lot of questions that people have had about C-sections to give people hope, because I think so many people are freaked out about C-sections and I totally understand why. If you want to know more about my C-sections, I'll put that video up above or link it at the end of this video. But I'm just going to give you kind of a basic, like, what I've learned about C-sections, because a lot of women ask, can we have more than 4 C-sections or 3? So I'm going to talk about that. So let me tell you just very briefly about me and my 4 C-sections. So I obviously didn't plan to have my first C-section. It was kind of, my son's heart started to drop, and so they had to wheel me in. I was fully dilated and everything, and so it was kind of an emergency C-section, even though it wasn't technically an emergency one, but they wheeled me in pretty fast, and within, like, I want to say 20 minutes, I could hear him crying for the first time. So it happened really quick once they said that I was having a C-section. And then after that, I had 3 more C-sections. So overall I had 4, and each one of my recoveries was completely different. My first by far was the worst C-section recovery wise. Like, I could barely walk. It was so painful. Just everything. I overall had a really hard time with my first, and so I was mentally prepared to have really hard C-sections, the rest of them, but that is not how it happened. Actually, my second C-section was fine. I was up and walking. I had very little pain. Like, I actually stopped taking pain medication, I think the 3rd day, and I was fine. I could feel a little bit, but it was not unbearable by any means. So once I got home from the hospital, I didn't take any medication and I was fine. My 3rd, however, was not as bad as my first as far as recovery, and not as good as my second. It was kind of painful. And I don't know if it's because I had men doctors, but those 2 were by far my hardest recovery. And then my last one, my 4th, which I need to note because people ask me this all the time, I had my 4th C-section when I was 38 years old. And my 4th C-section by far was my best recovery. And so I just kind of want to give you guys hope with C-sections that it's okay. And a lot of people ask me, like, if you can have more after 4 and all of that. So you definitely can. It depends though, very, very much depends on your doctor. So doctors, from what I understand, there's 2 things that doctors look at to let you know if you can have more children. And that is, they look to see, so when they cut you open, they can see how thin or thick your uterus is. And so if it's thick and healthy, then usually that's really good, and they say you can have more. But if it's thin, I've heard doctors say it's so thin that they can see the baby like it's glass, and that's not what you want, I guess. So if it's thin, that's kind of a red flag of maybe not to have any more C-sections. Now, I've heard that doctors can, like, overlay it. So when they cut you open, they can put one part of your uterus on top of the other, and so that will actually thicken your uterus, and they say that is legit, and so you'll heal that way, and it's thicker. So if you do have more, it's a thicker uterus. So if that makes sense, so talk to your doctor about that if that is something that you're concerned about. But usually they'll let you know if your uterus is thin or thick when they open you up, and from my understanding, they can't find it out any other way. So that's something you really want to pay attention to. Another thing I've heard, and I've heard this from doctors, is that some doctors see different things. So one doctor might say, oh, her uterus is thick and, you know, is fine for another one, whereas another doctor might see the exact same uterus and say they should never have another, you know, C-section. It's very thin. So it is kind of weird because doctors see different things. And so it's not like something that they can, you know, measure and say, oh, you're okay for another one and stuff. So there is that. Different doctors see different things. The second thing that doctors look at and you want to know about is scar tissue. So when they open you up, they will be able to see how well your body did as far as healing from your last C-section. And so those are the two things that doctors will kind of tell you what they saw. And what you really want is a doctor who is open to having as many C-sections as you can. I don't know if that makes sense, but I had a doctor who was filling in for my last doctor for my C-section, and she came in and she straight up said to my face, you cannot have any more. This is going to be your 4th C-section. You can't have any more C-sections. And she just went on and on about how I need to be on birth control and, you know, just kind of put panic in me if I didn't know what I know. Now, this doctor had no right to say that because she did not cut me open and see what was behind the curtains. Like, she didn't know what my C-section looked like. So you will get doctors who say, 3 and you're done. No more after that. And you do not want a doctor like that. Do not get a doctor like that because they're not being honest with you. They're not doing their homework and seeing, you know, what your body can handle and not handle. Now, I've heard a lot of people, there is a Facebook group. This is a Catholic Facebook group, and you don't have to be Catholic to join it by any means, but you know, Catholics are all about being open to God's will and not using artificial birth control. And so this whole page is a Facebook page. I'll see if I can link it down below, but you might be interested in having more children. That's why I'm saying this, but they're awesome because women who have had like 7 or 8 C-sections and they're fine. You know, so don't let doctors tell you, oh my God, like put the fear of God in you if they have not seen you opened up. You know, if they have not seen how thin or thick your uterus is or how much scar tissue that you have. So be very, very careful of doctors like that. In fact, if you have a doctor like that, I would get a different one and see what they say once they open you up. Because if you go in there and they already tell you what you can and can't do, that is not the truth, and that's probably not a good doctor. Obviously, I am not a doctor or a physician, but these are things that I've learned through going through this. Another thing people ask me is, when do you feel like your body's back to normal? And after each child, it was very different. Like my first child, the recovery was probably the worst, the hardest. And that one, it took about 3 months to feel normal again. Now, not to scare you, because actually my 4th C-section, I would say a week later, I felt normal again. Now, there is a part of your stomach when they cut you open that you will never feel again. That is kind of weird and bizarre, but it is very normal. Like, that is normal to feel that way. It's been 1.5 years for me, and I still can't feel my stomach, certain areas. So another thing people ask me all the time is, can you get up and walk right away? Now you can. So usually you'll have your C-section first thing in the morning, and then by towards the end of the day, they want you up and walking. And that is really good for your body to get moving. Obviously, you don't want to do anything too crazy, but it is very painful. Remember, you've just been cut open. Usually at this time you have medication and that sort of thing. So it's usually not too bad, but it just things like getting out of your bed is so hard. Like, you're gonna have your husband probably help you out of your bed and stuff like that. So it is painful, but keep up with your medication if you need to. Like I said before, I didn't need to after the 3rd day, and I could feel things, but I don't know if I have a high pain tolerance or what, but I decided not to take any more medication at that time, and I was okay. Like, it was bearable for me. So my hope for this video is to help you not to feel nervous or worried about C-sections. I know they seem really scary and painful and all of that, but my first was my hardest. So if you did have a really hard first C-section, that is not how they will always go. like I said, my fourth at the age of 38 was my best by far. And so I just want to give you hope that it's okay. Make sure that you are keeping up with exercise and stuff like that as soon as you are done with your C-sections, because I do truly believe that that helped my body to heal better. I mean, don't go crazy, you know, and strain yourself, but just go on lots of walks and stuff like that. And I feel like that really does help heal the C-sections for your next C-section if that is what you want to do. I did not have a VBAC because there was nowhere in my area that actually did VBACs for my second one, and it all turned out really well. But the fear of God came in me with my first one, so I was really nervous. And so I know a lot of people do VBACs, and that's awesome. If you feel like you're up to it, I've heard that that is really good. I've heard so many successful stories with that. I don't have any because I didn't have any VBACs, but I have heard that they can go really awesome. So so that's something to look into. All right, so that is my C-section a year and a half later. I feel completely and totally fine now. So if you're having more than one C-section and you're really nervous, I'm just hoping that this brings you hope and encouragement. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the little subscribe button down below. And until next time, I will see you all later. God bless. Bye.